so we've got a nice lump of a Serreire mirror in the landing net. Plenty of time. We need to get ourselves organised first. A lot of people rush to get the fish out of the water without the camera being set up and the scales and so on. There is no rush. 5 minutes in the net is no problem. It fought hard, so it's good to give it a bit of time to recover. So first thing to do is get your chest waders on. Everybody should be aware that all photos of any size fish on both Lac Serreire and Badger's Holt, they should be taken always in the water, or they must be taken in the water. So get your chest waders on first. If you're wearing a wristwatch, remove the wristwatch, because the strap of the watch can scratch the bottom of the fish, especially metal straps. So get rid of the wristwatch. You're on holiday anyway, you don't need to know the time. Make sure your scales are on the tripod. We have a tripod in every swim. Scales should be on the tripod. You don't want to be messing around looking for them with the fish flapping on the mat. They should be zeroed and on the tripod. If you do use a tripod on the platform, as we're doing here, little tip is the bottom of the legs should be just pushed into the grooves, as you can probably see here, between the wooden planks. If you don't do that, the tripod wants to skid around. If you put it into these grooves between the planks, it's rock solid. Obviously it is a platform, it's harder than the ground, so you really must make sure the fish never touches directly onto the wood. It's got to always be in the cradle when it's out of the water. Next thing we do is you fill up a bucket of lake water. If it's in the summer, you don't want to have a bucket of water. Some people fill the bucket in good preparation and they do it meaning well, but they'll fill it up in the morning or one day, and it can be a couple of days later in the bright sun, and the bucket's like boiling water at that point. They're about to pour it over a fish. So only fill the bucket of water up just before you're going to use it. Always use lake water, never tap water, obviously. Pour a whole bucket into the cradle. You can't have too much. Fill it up again afterwards. Make sure you've always got water ready, and the fish has got to be kept wet all the time. Okay, so that's the preparation done. Now moving back to the fish itself, you should also be aware that we're a strictly barbless hook only fishery on both lakes. One of the advantages of that is, as has happened in this case, the hook very often comes out in the net. Once you let the line go slack and the fish is in the bottom of the net, the hook very often will come out. It has here. When it goes in the landing net, as it has here, being barbless, it comes out very easily as well, so you don't make loads of holes in the landing net. So there's lots of advantages. Get the rod out of the way completely. You don't want to be tripping over the line or hooking yourself. If the hook is still in the fish's mouth, and if the hook won't easily come out, don't battle with it in the water, because on especially a short hook length, you can damage the fish just by fighting on a short hook length, trying to flick the hook out. I highly recommend, as I'm doing, and we'll talk about this on a different video, use quick link type or some kind of hook length clip system that you can remove the hook length from the leg clip. If you can remove the hook length, you leave it in the fish's mouth, leave the hook in the fish's mouth, deal with the hook when it's on the bank. It's a lot easier than in the net. If you're not using a quick link, either cut the hook link or cut the main line. I would always cut the hook link, because if you cut the main line and you've got a marker on the main line and for your distance, then when you retie the main line on, you're going to end up with a different spot. So cut the hook length or disconnect the hook length if the hook is still in the fish's mouth. Okay, this one doesn't have the hook in it, so we're lucky. We take the landing net arms off like this, and just like you do on most fisheries, roll a couple of turns on the net. You don't need much, just to close the top of the net. Take the waist sling, which is nice and strong and much better for lifting them out of the water. Never ever lift the fish out of the water in the landing net. The landing net's a 42 inch. These fish are often very big, and it causes the fish to be bent round in a kind of banana shape, very, very much so. Fins can come through the mesh. You damage the mesh, but don't really care about that, but you damage the fins very often. So never ever lift the fish out of the lake in the landing net. You take the sling, you put it in the water, and you guide the fish in the landing net into the sling like this. So now we have the fish in the landing net, in the sling, and it's not going anywhere. Make sure the whole landing net is in. Zip up both ends. These zips sometimes can stick a little bit. If they do, just go backwards slightly before you come forward again, and they always free themselves up. Okay, so the zip should be mostly done up. Now, just check down the size of the fish. The pecs, the pectoral fins at the front of the fish, can occasionally bend the wrong way. They could bend forwards, and if you put the whole weight of the fish then on the fin, it can snap the base of the fin which is obviously really bad. So the fins need to all be backwards. In this case it is. They nearly always are, but just in case, always be careful. If it's a really big fish, these slings have a handle both ends. I recommend having 2 people, 1 on each end. This fish is okay to lift on its own. So if that's the case, just lift it in the middle. Always watch, a lot of the swims on Serreire, they have platforms. Make sure you don't lift the fish and hit the side of the platform. So make sure it's at least a few inches out from the platform. Lift it up, let a bit of the water drain out. It's a good fish. And we go straight onto the scales. No need to put it down. We go straight on the scales, which are on 0. And here, this fish is about 35, just over 35 pounds. That's with the sling and the landing net. We'll deduct those weights later on. Okay, if the hook was still in the fish, we gently lower it down into the cradle. So if the zips jam, just go the opposite way a little bit and they loosen themselves up. This would be the time you would unhook it. This one's obviously got the hook already out, so it's no problem. But it does give you a chance to have a quick look at the fish. Just check the mouth's all okay. This one's absolutely no damage at all. In fact, it's a lovely classic Serreire mirror, not very yellow and orange on the belly area. Very nice fish, very clean and lively and fit, as you can see. Okay, that's enough stress for it out of the lake. We put it, leaving it in the landing net in the sling. We put it back into the water, and each swim has usually a kind of cleat on the end of it, which you can temporarily just put the sling ropes over so that the fish can sit there quite comfortably. Okay, now the next thing to do is take the base out of the cradle like this, and you'll notice the cradle in the bottom is hollow. Oh, it has a mesh in it. The way we do the photos on Serreire is we put the cradle in the water first. Okay, get in the water with the cradle. Okay, then again, checking the fins are still back, which they are. We left the fish into the cradle. Now, only at this time is it good to take the landing net out. A lot of people, I used to do it for a long time till somebody showed me, and it's obvious really. Many people, they remove the landing net on the bank on the cradle, but you've got the whole weight of the fish pushing down on the net, and it's really hard to get it out. Not so bad with a fish this size, but when it's a 50, 60 pound fish, quite hard on the bank to get the net out without sliding all the mucus off the side of the fish, possibly splitting a fin. Once it's in the water like this, as you can see, the water's filled up the cradle. It's like a little floating swimming pool really. All we have to do, one person can do it really easily. We just slide the net out behind. No mucus removed, no stress, really easy. Easy for the fish, easy for the angler. You can take your time doing the photos. The fish has water in its mouth and its gills, unlike on the bank, especially in the summer. If it's very hot, and I see people have the fish out the water sometimes way too long. If you do it this way and the fish is a bit lively or something, you can take your time. You can put the fish down, you can have another go at it. There's a lot less stress for you, a lot less stress for the fish this way. Okay, so now just hold the fish gently, just above the height of the cradle, and there we go for a nice photo. Okay, if you want to get one of the other side, a lot of people do, and I quite like to see both sides of them as well. What you do, instead of trying to turn the fish there, just turn the whole cradle, and now you can do it from the other side. One other point is, never roll a fish on its belly on the bank. When it's on the cradle there, on the bank, if you do this with it, you're putting all the weight on the internal organs. Now, a small fish, you know, maybe a double or a 20, it's not a big deal perhaps, but for the really big fish, especially the deep-bellied French royals, as these carp mainly are, it can be really bad for the liver, the heart, the whole digestive system. you're putting a lot of pressure on the organs that aren't designed to take that pressure. Normally the water supports their weight. If you want to roll a fish over, once it's in the cradle like this, it's really easy, no problem, because the water's taking the weight, but never on the bank. Okay. When we're ready to release the fish, there's a couple of options. You can either unzip the end of the cradle like this. I have a zip here. Make sure that the sling is fully unzipped. Like this. Now, all we do is we can just open the two parts, flood the cradle fully, and just let the fish in its time swim off. Just one word of caution there, or one thing to just look. Just make sure the fish's gills, when you're looking at a fish in that situation, just before it goes, just make sure the gills are going. You can see them, you can see it clearly breathing. Never ever have a problem here normally, but in the summer oxygen levels can be a little bit lower. If they've fought hard, you know, it's worth just checking their breathing. This one's very lively, it's cold, and off she goes. Fight another day. So just to recap, all the photos must be taken in the water, no photos whatsoever on the bank. You don't have to use the cradle in the water if you're very confident to not lose the fish if it flips or something. But I personally think even the most experienced anglers, you know, sometimes, especially a big fish, it can flip, you can lose it out your arms before you get a photo, and that can be really disappointing, obviously, if you've come all the way down here and you don't get a photo of that really big fish. So personally, I always think put the cradle in the water, make sure the base is taken out so the cradle floods like this. It gives the fish water, the fish can breathe, it's less stress for the fish, you can take your time, it's better for everything, the fish and the person and the fishery. And also don't ever take the landing net out from under the fish on the bank. Always take it out at this position when the fish is in the water. You saw how easily the landing net just slides out. Not many people are aware, but the mucus on the carp is such an important part of the fish. It's its barrier against infections and so on. If you scrape that off, and I see people doing that, you know, dryish nets, dryish unhooking mat, pulling a net out from under a 50-pound carp on the bank, the net's covered in mucus afterwards, which should be on the fish. Now you've opened that fish up to potential infections. So that's the reason we do these things. There's a really good reason behind it. We're not trying to make everyone's life awkward. Everybody wants to catch big, healthy carp, and that's why we have the rules we have here. So thank you very much for listening.